Ladies and gentlemen, boys and ghouls, it's time for below grade level. It's time for the fright of your life.
Hello and welcome to Below Grade Level, the show where we take the books that we read as kids and read them as adults and ruin them. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Eaton. With me as always is Bekah Eaton.
Hello.
And Chris Zaleski.
Hello.
We have a special guest to close out this book, this masterpiece of a book, returning champion John Walker.
Oh, I was wondering who it was, but it's me.
It's you! What if I brought another person on and you were just here to listen?
You didn't speak to me.
Every time you'd speak, just like, wait, hold on, John, shush.
John, shut up.
Yeah, right.
John.
I like
John,
your,
we're talking to our special guest. I know. I keep brushing it aside, and it keeps returning.
It's like a Superman spit curl.
This book might be cursed. This is the fourth time we've tried to record the end of this book. Scheduling conflicts, and then we tried to record this last night, and the website that we used to read this book was down, and this book is so weird and old that a Kindle doesn't exist of it. It's just on Open Library. But Open Library is back online, and we can...
I like to think Christopher Pike somehow learned of the podcast and was like, shut it down now.
Shut it down now. No one can know. Okay, so John, we are reading this book called The Eternal Enemy by Christopher Pike. So I'm going to give you a quick, and when I say quick, I mean not quick at all.
Belabored?
It's too much has happened in this book. So our main character's name is Rela, R-E-L-A, which is already a weird name. But she's a teenage girl. She loves cookies and milk and boys and movies and all sorts of all-American things. The book starts off...
Jesus and her boyfriend, too.
Damn it. The book starts off with her going to Circuit City to buy a VCR because she's going to have a party, and she wants to buy a VCR so she can tape an old sci-fi horror movie and play it at her party. There was about one entire chapter of her haggling with this guy who works at Circuit City and him upselling her a VCR with 4 heads. And it got really, really into like the nitty gritty of like video remote recording technology. But she eventually...
Circa when is this book from? Is it like
93?
Okay, 90.
Also, I feel like it was at least like 4 chapters just talking about buying the VCR.
Mm-hmm. And this never came up again, but like she didn't even have the money to buy it. She like literally gave him like a post-dated check, which I don't.
Yeah, I thought that was gonna be a plot point.
I did too, and it never came up again.
I thought that guy was trying to fuck with her or something.
Yeah, or like hook up with her, which like he kind of was, but then
he went to her party and then he fucked her friend.
That's right. Yeah, I think that was just the last we saw of him.
Yeah,
it was just him hooking up with her friend.
So the people in this book fuck.
Oh boy,
yeah.
do they!
Okay, just making sure. I just didn't know what the temperature of the room was in terms of the world.
Christopher Pike books fuck.
Okay, I kind of knew they did, but it's like I didn't know if this was in that young adult world where it would be implied. But no, you're saying people are definitely at it.
So she buys this VCR. She tapes this movie. She throws a party, and also meanwhile she's obsessed, like to a weird degree, obsessed with this guy in her class named Christopher Perry. Again, it's funny that it's Christopher Perry. It's written by Christopher Pike. She's like super fucking into this guy, and he's like really hunky,
smart,
and he's like super smart. He's really into science. He's incredibly smart and hunky, and she's into him.
Another thing about her is that she lives with her basically adopted father.
Yes.
Someone who has kind of taken her in off the street, who is a single male reverend or pastor. I can't remember what it was.
The Reverend Spencer Lindquist.
Yes, the Reverend Spencer Lindquist.
And
so she lives with this guy that she was kind of found wandering the street with a questionable, we don't know anything about it kind of past.
Yeah.
And he took her in and like has given her a roof over her head.
Which we find out like at least halfway through the book.
Are they on good terms?
Yes.
Oh, they're on great terms.
Spence is great.
Spence is
Yeah,
awesome.
he's a good dad. He's a character.
He's
He's in the mix. He's in the
Yeah.
mix. He's not like a shadowy figure from the past.
He gambles with her. It's
he's
great.
There.
It was about...
He's very sweet. He spent the night at the church so she could have a sleepover,
Right.
and then no one even slept over.
Yeah. It was like halfway through the book when we realized, when the book told us, by the way, she doesn't remember anything from before 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, literally, her life up until 3 months ago, she has no idea who she is.
I want to say it was like 3/4 into the book when all of a sudden they're like,
it was
he's
very
only been her
recently.
dad for 3 months.
Yeah. We're like, what? She has this party. She slips with a knife and cuts her finger really badly, but it doesn't seem to be a big deal, which like we thought was a big deal at the time. And then time went by in the book, and we were like, I guess that didn't mean anything. And then it actually did come back. And then she starts to realize there's something up with the VCR. So when she tapes stuff on the VCR, it tapes the future. So she'll put the tape in the VCR and she'll have it record like that night, but what it's really doing is recording like the next night, and so she can see the news from the next night. She quickly figures out, hang on, I can use this to gamble. So she drives to Las Vegas. I think this takes place in like LA or something.
Well, she wins a bet with Spence, her dad,
Right.
first. Uses that money to go to Vegas. Then
She
spends
fleeces
that
her-
money on the bet.
She
So
fleeces
how
her.
is she using this VCR? Like, how do you use a VCR?
She'll
like,
record
it's Back to the Future too,
sportscast from the next day, and then bet on the next day's
sports,
game.
of course, sports. All right.
It's-
I guess I got confused thinking it would be like gambling, like
On the news.
games. But no.
Yeah.
It's more that just she can look at the scores.
She just
All right,
knows
got it,
like
got
who
it.
won the
All right.
baseball
Yeah,
game.
duh. So it's a what we call a Biff Tannen move.
It's your classic Biff Tannen.
Yeah.
But
yeah, she
makes a very specific bet, like not just for them to win with this exact score.
right.
Yeah.
She fleeced her dad for $500, which seemed insane. And she's like, I'll pay him back. I don't think she did.
In 1993
don't know
money,
if she
which is
did.
$5 million today.
Yeah. At least.
Just shit got weird really
Shit got weird so quickly. She went to
mean,
Vegas.
weirder than
She
that
won
already.
something like $20,000.
While
Like she
also
won an,
befriending the bookie.
befriended
Yeah.
the old bookie who took her advice and bet his paycheck on the same thing and also won like 20 grand. And he's like, I'm going back to New York. That was all we ever saw of him.
That's how bookies talk. Everybody knows that, right? They all talk like
They all
this, and they
talk
have
like
like
this.
a gross stub of a cigar that's like it's like a DeVito thing
I
to
was
chew
doing
on.
an Ermintrout voice for him.
No.
That's
All
right. Yeah, that was good. So then, right after she makes 20 grand, she's like, wait, maybe I should use the news to not just make money. I should try and help people. And she sees a report on the news where 4 window washers in San Francisco fall to their death. And she's like, all right, I'm going to go save those
bet
window
on that.
washers. I'm going to bet on that.
How many window washers are going to fall to their deaths
She
today?
massively fucks it up. She gets like caught in traffic or something. She gets there too late. She goes to the roof somehow. She like convinces one of them who I can't remember. Was it the book or was it us who is like commenting a lot on this woman's body, like the female window washer?
It was both.
Was it?
The book prompted us to keep joking, like, why do they keep talking about how attractive this lady is?
This lady window washer. She gets this lady window washer up on the roof to be like, you're going to die. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm going back to work. And so she grabs like a flashlight and bludgeons her unconscious. And then
That was
like,
her go-to move.
and then the rest of the window washers fall to their death and nothing happens. Okay. Meanwhile,
That was sort of a success.
it was,
I
yeah,
mean,
she saved one
It
person.
was more successful than doing nothing.
Definitely. Although that woman might have brain damage.
She might.
She hit her like
We don't
twice
know.
with a
At least
mag
she's
light.
alive.
That woman has CTE now, and
Okay,
yeah.
so
can't remember her
meanwhile,
children's names anymore.
I need to say that throughout the whole book, she has dreams. So like every like other chapter or like in between stuff happening, it'll be like, and then I dreamt that night, and her dreams are fucking like
Cronenberg.
like Cronenberg, like Hellraiser, Clive Barker style fucking nightmares of like robotic hands like opening her skull up and ripping her spine out, and like she's awake and alive for all of it, and there's like green fluid going into her veins, and it is hilariously graphic. Like it's crazy how gory it is, and she'll wake up and be like, that's fucking weird.
Yeah, like she does. Then she goes and talks about cookies for like the next fucking chapter.
Yeah, and then she's like, man, I love Christopher. I'm so in love with this guy, Christopher. Okay, so then John, she sees a news report that is from the next night, and it's that she has been brutally murdered in her house, like chopped up into a million pieces. And she's like, oh, fuck. I better try and avoid that. And she brings Christopher in on it, her now boyfriend. They've gone on a date. They've smooched.
Did they smooch?
They did smooch. I wanted to point that out. So she brings Christopher in on the whole thing, and then she looks at the news report again, and it's changed, Biff Tannen, etc. Now it says that Christopher was brutally murdered. And she's like, oh, no, I don't want to involve this. Meanwhile, she's been, like, stalked by this creepy-looking old guy who's, like, really weird and creepy, and he's, like, gone to her job, and she thinks he's the guy who's going to kill her. So this dude shows up at her house, this old guy, and they had this weird moment where he's like, you know what I'm here to do? And she's like, I know, but I don't want you to do it. And he's like, and she's like, who am I? And he's like, that's not the right question. Don't you know? Like, don't you know what the right question is? And she's like, what am I? And he says, you're a robot. Because Rela stands for something like robotic, electronic.
Of course it does. Of course it does.
Something algorithm.
Living algorithm.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Living algorithm. And he's like, I'm your grandfather.
Wait, her grandfather, like a robot grandfather? Or like, how does that work?
They're like, okay, so I'll tell you how it works. So
All
then,
right, I'm silly for asking.
So the last episode was us reading one single chapter, which felt like it was 500 years. And the previous chapter, what just happened in the book, is her flashing forward to like the 2030s when she was born in the future.
The last chapter was
a few years from now.
The last chapter was all of her memories like unlocking.
Yeah.
Because she chose to remember, and all of a sudden it's just like, boom, wait, I was born in the 2030s. And
the whole reason, like, she cut her finger and it didn't matter is because she's a fucking robot. And she, like, her grandfather, like, pulled her finger sleeve off like the Terminator, and it was just copper wires underneath. So in the future, she's a regular teenage girl named Sarah. Her grandfather is a crazy, smart super scientist.
What does Sarah stand for?
Specialized automatic robot.
Real, actual human.
Real human. So he basically creates robots. Like, he has this whole thing where it's basically like you can transfer your consciousness into a robot body.
First, he figured out how to increase his intellect.
Yeah.
And he increased it so much that he could, like, see atoms. And then because he could see atoms...
Could, like, smell time.
He essentially unlocked the secrets of the universe, and he could time travel mentally, but not physically, for some reason.
Yeah, he could, like, go back in time and see anything.
It's like, I was there at creation.
Yeah. And then he creates... And they were, like, experimenting on comatose, like, accident patients, like... brain dead people. They were experimenting with them, so they were like taking brain dead brains and like transferring their consciousness into robots, and so they started making robots, and then I think the robots started making robots.
It was like a Cylon situation.
And then the robots made by robots started their own like United Nations type organization to help solve, because like in the future the world, like, you know, there's a food crisis and an energy crisis and a water crisis and all this other.
It was a lot of good guesses. Europe
was radioactive. A lot of good guesses, and his whole thing, with the grandfather is like, I feel horrible about doing this because what's going to happen is in the future, humans will cease to exist. We'll just put our consciousness in robot bodies. All of us at this table is like, yeah,
sure.
That sounds fine. Do it now. Do it to me now.
That sounds awesome.
Give me a robot body. Like, his whole thing is like, humans will go extinct, even though technically they won't, because we will evolve into robots.
And the reason he did it was because he could see into the future, and he just kept seeing different apocalypses and humans not making it. So then he made the robots, and then the robots made more robots, and he's like, finally, humanity survives somehow.
Yeah.
See, but I'm not one of those put me in a robot people, though, because I don't think the consciousness that makes it to the other side is me. I think it might be a facsimile of me, and it might have my memories, and it might act like me.
But you think
but
you'll
the
die?
Me, I think the me that goes into that teleporter, then they say, "Oh, it rebuilds you on the other side," and it's like
you one of those. Every time they transport on Star Trek, they die.
I would just be having that philosophical question every time. So what? It rebuilds me according to what? According to a computer's exact instructions. And it's like,
It's like
I'm not saying there's a soul. I'm just saying there's something. There's a little. It's not me. It's a brand new baby me that has all my memories. And
meanwhile, the original John is dropped into a tank of water.
Right, and also I feel like that's great for everybody but me. You know what I mean? Like if I can transfer my intelligence to a robot and then die, that's great for everybody but me because people get to have the pleasure of me forever. But for me, that sucks because I'm not around to enjoy it.
That's your next album title. A brand new, brand new baby me.
Brand new baby me.
That's not bad.
So at this point in time, Sarah is like, "You're a fucking monster, you piece of shit." Like, she completely disowns her grandfather.
And it also is like, he wants to stop it, but he can't at this point because the robots are too powerful.
Yeah.
There's nothing he can do to shut them down.
Yeah.
Because they're smarter than him and stronger than him.
And there's too many of them. There's like 12 or 40 of them or something like that. Yeah.
They consult him and ask him for his opinion, but they don't listen to him at all.
Yeah. So then
like there hasn't been years and years and years of literature of people's creations rising up against them.
Right.
Sarah then decides what she has to do is convince her grandfather to put her brain into a robot body so that she can travel back in time to kill her grandfather so none of this ever happens. So there's a really disturbing...
What was the first thing you said? She doesn't convince him of that.
No, she does. He has to do it because
she kills herself.
She can't just kill herself.
She doesn't tell him the plan, though.
No. She doesn't tell him why.
He doesn't know that she wants to go back in time and kill baby Hitler, basically.
Yes.
Baby him. She's like saying that she wants to learn science or whatever the fuck. Like, she gives an excuse, but that's her actual plan. I want to be a robot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's like at a hotel and he's on his way and she calls him and she's like, "I'm gonna kill myself." And he's like, "No." And she's like, "Ha, too late." She hangs up and fucking kills herself.
Yeah.
Make me a robot, Grandpa. Bye.
Makes like a crazy concoction or something. I don't remember what the deal is, but she basically leaves him instructions like, "I killed myself. You better put me into a robot body or else Mom and Dad will be mad." Like, if you don't do this, they're gonna think I'm dead. So you got to do it. So he puts her in a robot body.
And for some reason, the robot bodies can travel through time physically. Whereas, Grandpa can only do it mentally.
Yeah.
For some reason.
That's not explained very well. So all of her dreams that she's been having of, like, being split open and her spine being removed and her blood being, like, replaced with green stuff is actually the process she goes through in the future to become a robot. So she becomes a robot. She goes back in time. Instantly loses her memory, starts dating her grandpa.
Oh, you didn't explain that very well.
Because Christopher in the past, Christopher is her grandfather in the past.
Yeah, Christopher is a young grandpa.
Yeah. So
and the creepy old man that showed up is her grandfather, and that's
from the future.
From the future.
Yeah.
Although I don't remember how that happened. Is he a robot?
Well,
Did he turn into a robot
he must
to go
be.
Back?
He has to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
He must have turned himself into a robot to be able to go back in time physically to stop her or do whatever he's doing.
And the last chapter ended is like, "Am I going to kill Christopher?" Yeah. Because like it was like a split second. This long ass chapter to her was like a split second of her memories unlocking,
of remembering everything.
And then to us, it's like, oh wait, we're back in her living room where she's talking to her grandfather who came back in time to kill her. And she went back in time to kill him. She like reverse terminated.
So, nutshell again for me: motivation for killing her, and motivation for killing him. I get that they're at odds, but it's like she's trying to kill him. Like she would kill him, but now before he would do any of the things that would bring her about. Yeah. Though, like, so is there a paradox? Are we expecting any kind of timey-wimey paradox stuff?
Oh yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
Because she'd be killing him before she.
Well, yeah, she killed.
Existed.
If she killed him, she should. Although she's a robot,
but maybe she's sacrificing herself for the greater good of humanity.
Yeah.
Because her goal is to make the robot shit not happen.
And then if he kills her back in the past, if he comes back and kills her, that helps him because she's just not there to meddle in his affairs in the future.
Yeah, which I don't understand. I mean, obviously, like, a person doesn't want to die, but
Right.
he also regretted doing all that robot stuff.
Yeah, you would think he
so
would want
it's not like he's trying to protect
to
the
happen.
robots.
Yeah.
As far as we know, he sounded very regretful.
He was
about
super regretful. He's like, it's the biggest regret of my life.
Yeah.
I love the idea of a battle to the death between two people where it's not clear what their motivation
super
is.
Why am I
unclear.
trying to kill you?
Now, John, I know what you're thinking. What about the VCR?
I was exactly thinking
Oh,
that.
right.
I
Yes.
forgot about that.
Turns out, it was just her
It's just a
brain's
regular
way of
VCR.
interpreting the fact that she can see the memories of the entire universe because she's a robot now, and her amnesiac brain interpreted it as the VCR records the future, which was just so dumb.
So we had to read like
Yeah.
30 pages of 2 VCR heads are not as good as 4 VCR heads, because 4 VCR heads you can record in slow motion.
So
You
that
can
means
slow
she
motion.
was recording regular television and watching it and seeing it as future stuff because it was unlocking things in her brain?
She would dream.
She kept recording only at night for some fucking reason.
Because
so she
it
would
was-
set it up
yeah.
to like record a movie overnight, and then she'd fall
She's a
asleep.
night taper.
And then her like
Taper.
dream energy was making
Yeah,
the
it
VCR
was like
record the future.
The robot brainwaves from her dreaming were like were like, you know, causing the VCR to be like bzz, and like record, and you know, it
Doesn't make a lot of
it's
sense.
temporal stuff. Oh no, it's pretty rock solid.
Oh, forgive me.
You're going to have like a Mythbusters segment where you explain how it's all possible.
So that's where we
I'm
left
just
off.
gonna say magnets.
John, any
How do they work?
thoughts until any thoughts up until this point? Any predictions?
I mean, honestly, it sounds like a battle between good and evil is coming. I don't know.
I don't know.
But I expect her to somehow be victorious for some reason.
All right,
That would be my thought.
John
But
is
maybe
Team
this is a
Rela.
Christopher Pike. Well, I'm not so much Team Rela. I just feel like it's that kind of book where at the end she's going to have, bested him. But I don't really know why or why I should be happy about that outside of the fact. This sounds very much like a them issue. You know, I mean, maybe I haven't seen the robot apocalypse part of the story yet, but it almost seems like our lifespan would go just normally if they just settled their shit, somewhere else. So I don't know. Yeah, I'll have to see if I can get a sense of the stakes.
Bekah, what do you think is going to happen? What's your prediction for the end of this book?
Oh my god. I think Christopher Pike is really dark and fucked up, so I wouldn't be surprised if it did end in robot apocalypse.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like teenage Christopher is probably going to show back up and have a showdown with old man Christopher.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's going to happen, but
So he feels like that much
I
of
could
a
see it ending
character?
darkly.
Like, because when you guys were telling me, it didn't seem like young Christopher was doing that much.
Oh,
Except
he's
for
been
being
in
an
a
object.
lot.
He
Okay.
has been. He was there. He was like doing some science stuff and made some weird helmet that does weird stuff to your brain, and he put it on Rela, and it like hurt her and freaked her out and stuff.
It's a Doc Brown helmet.
She talks about him absolutely constantly.
Yeah.
She wrote an incredibly unhinged diary entry
It was really crazy.
mooning over him. They went to
So this book,
Blockbuster together.
let alone
He's
passing the
been
Bechdel
around.
test. This doesn't even take the Bechdel test.
This is the second.
Yeah, there's one female friend that she talks to, and it's basically about how.
And it's a frenemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it an eternal
They
frenemy?
basically just talk about Christopher
Or a
and the
fraternal
girl that
frenemy?
Christopher brought, who turned out to be his hot cousin.
Oh, right. Yeah. So really, that's her like third cousin twice removed. She's related to that girl.
Yeah, what would her grandfather's cousin be?
I don't know.
I want to tag on to
Grand
One of my
cousin.
grandfather's cousins.
I want to tag on to Becca's prediction.
Yeah, Chris, what's your prediction?
I think Grandpa, in a tussle with young Grandpa, is going to accidentally kill young Grandpa and be like, "What have I done?"
So do you
Oh.
think it will be Back to the Future rules where, like, if young Christopher dies, then old Christopher dies or didn't exist or whatever.
He like disappears in like a.
He just starts fading away.
I think so. It's funny because Back to the Future has definitely all 3 Back to the Futures have come out when this book was written, but this book has cited Terminator multiple times. Not Back to the Future. It cites Terminator. So I feel like we got to go by Terminator rules.
It flat out goes like, yeah, we know what we're doing.
Although I guess Terminator rules are still kind of the same thing. But
that has time travel and robots, right?
See, what I'm thinking is Terminator rules, like, if the robot goes back in time and kills young John Connor, then John Connor doesn't grow up to be, like, the savior of humanity in the future. But I think if that happens, the Terminator in the past still just exists. Like, I don't think it's not Back to the Future rules where, like, if... You know,
they would like fade from existence.
They wouldn't just fade away. I think like
they
still just exist there. They just now exist in the past, and they're like, all right, well, job's done. So I
like
don't
the Kelvin timeline in Star Trek.
Oh God.
Well, I want to say that I didn't know that young Christopher was as much of a player in this. It's almost sounding like you're expecting more of a 2 Christophers showdown than a robot lady and Christopher showdown.
Like right before she started having this conversation with her grandfather, her and young Christopher were at the house because she called him and was like, someone's going to murder me and chop me to bits. Now they're going to murder you and chop you to bits. And then she was like, I'm going to go to the house where I'm supposed to be murdered. And he's like, don't fucking do that. That's stupid. But then he shows up.
She's like, let's bring in a third person we don't care about and see if they're the one that gets murdered and chopped to bits.
Wasn't he in the house when they were like... trying to see if someone was going to come in, and then I feel like he left.
He's like unconscious.
He got knocked out. Oh wait, he got knocked out or frozen or
stunned
something.
on the floor.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, he's in the house right now, but like unconscious.
I think they're all in the same room. I think he's just unconscious.
I think Grandpa has a phaser.
My prediction is that Ed, the guy who works at Circuit City, is going to come to the rescue. I'm just like wild card.
I just want someone to hit him with the VCR. Like hit Grandpa with the VCR.
Oh, that's good.
That would be delicious.
It would weigh so much.
A
1993
so much. A 1993 VCR with 4 heads? All right, let's find out. Now that it's been a half hour of us recapping. Chapter 14. Yes, grandfather, I said. It was you who named me.
Also, they fucking talk like this.
Yeah. He did not pull the trigger on his weapon, a phaser. My remark appeared to interest him. You know who I am? He asked. Yes, you were always afraid of pain. You went back to New Life. New Life is the UN thing. You went back to New Life because you knew your days as a mortal were ending. I'm gonna read her more as a robot now that we know that she's like a full-on robot. You were afraid to face the end, that end. You probably took the Nemprin, like I did, before you let the cyborgs put the THC in your veins.
Not that THC.
Not that THC.
So the edibles aren't a part of this.
You're high as fuck right now. I bet you faked them out. Then, as time went on and the technology of your offspring improved, you made yourself more and more mechanical until you finally became the perfect thinking machine you had originally glimpsed in the future. I paused. You have thought yourself back in time from more than 1,000 years from now. Your analysis is correct. Fucking God. I am here from the year 3116. In a sense, I am your grandfather. I have all his memories, but I am much more than he ever was. Then why don't you pull the trigger? There is time, he said simply. Get it? There's time.
Oh, you have another reason for delaying. You don't want to kill me. I assure you I will destroy you momentarily, and that I will feel no discomfort when I do so. I sneered. So you are the crowning achievement of humanity. A complex computer without a drop of humanity in it. What happened to your precious programming? How can you kill me? You're supposed to protect me. Technically, you're already dead. That's true. I am under no obligation to keep you alive. Also, you have to be destroyed so that billions of humans will not suffer the future you are trying to recreate by killing Christopher Perry as a young man. You can kill one to save billions. The end justifies the means. I have already stated that technically you are already dead.
It's the trolley problem.
I glanced at Christopher. He was so close, so vulnerable, but I knew I would not be able to reach him before the robot cut me down. I had 10 times the strength of a normal human being, but I suspected the robot had 10 times that.
You're a robot.
The other robot.
I know, but she's saying the robot like there aren't two robots there.
I know. I was joking. I was not going to win by acting rashly. I gestured to Christopher. What are you going to do with him? I asked. He will wake up tomorrow morning in his own bed. He will remember everything that happened until the moment he blacked out. He will hear about your death when he calls your foster father here in the morning. The incident will disturb him for years to come, but he will get on with his life and complete the work he was meant to do. Oops.
Oh, what? Oh, jeez.
If this fucking website goes down again.
Yeah.
I have to know what happened.
Oh, God.
I'm going to drive to the goddamn library.
We had to borrow the book again.
There we go.
Okay.
Let me zoom in.
He was not meant to create a cyborg, I protested. He stole the information from the future to build it. He obtained the information for the good of humanity. I had to laugh. Ha, 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 ha. The good of humanity? Give me a break. Your kind will wipe out humanity. How could you possibly justify your existence as being for people's benefit? I am unmoved by discussions of this kind. It will not prevent me from destroying you. Sarah once said to be human was to suffer.
I forgot he was starchy.
I am opposed to all suffering. I will answer your other questions. Why I am delaying shooting. I have qualities of humanity in my makeup. For example, I share your grandfather's curiosity. I'm so curious, like a cat. He was curious about all things. I have a couple of questions I want to ask you. You didn't want to ask them until I called you grandfather. That is correct. Why? Let us say you're calling me that stimulated my ancient curiosity. May I ask my questions now?
Oh, he sure is her grandfather.
This feels a lot like filler for no reason.
Yeah.
When I am through answering them, you are going to shoot me? That is correct. I blinked. I should take my time answering them. Shoot. I mean, go ahead. Ask your questions. I did not ad-lib that. That is how it is written in the book.
Oh, what a funny robot.
Why did Sarah put herself through pain and suffering to try to alter the future by going into the past to save the human race? But her saving the human race in the form she wished to save it in, the shitty form, would have caused more pain and suffering to more people. What? What?
Wait, did you not?
Borrow for 1 hour. Isn't that what we did?
Are you logged in?
Yeah, I was logged in. Stand by.
I'm going to take this moment to pee.
Technical
I'm
difficulties.
gonna fucking buy this book if it doesn't work. Okay, there we go. Thank God.
Come on, open library.
They really don't want me to finish this book.
I know, it's almost like they want there to be a sense of suspense that's missing from the book, but exists in the world. Starchy? Who is Starchy?
Oh, do you ever watch Adventure Time?
Yes.
He was a little,
He looks like a little meatball. He's like a little hush puppy.
Okay,
He's got
like
the
a
hat on.
mustache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll wait for young Christopher.
Oh, no.
Won't he be
No.
confused about what's happening in the book?
We're already confused. None of this makes sense.
I want hush puppies now.
Oh, jeez.
So, is that your second question? Is that
That's her, I think, right?
that's her?
Yeah. Yeah, that's Rela.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Is that your second question? It is a third. Okay. Just let me know when you're coming up on the last one.
Oh, my God.
My answer to you is, so what? From my perspective and the perspective of most humans, it is better to be alive and suffering than not to exist. But we're not discussing non-existence. I exist. Humanity survives through us. But that's not my point. You are not human. By the year 3116, you will have destroyed the very things that make us human. You're a cyborg. You're no longer human. I am human. I have feelings. I have a soul. Even when you cut my spine and my brain from my body, I survived. I am Sarah. Damn you. I am not Rela.
I'm Kilroy.
010011101. You have the memories of Sarah, but Sarah killed herself. Once a human dies, he or she stays dead. That is a scientific fact. This book is full of scientific facts. I like that that's the scientific fact. That's one of the first things they teach you if you go to science school is if something dies, it stays dead.
Yeah,
That's the real eternal enemy. Scientific facts.
I felt beaten. Are you dead, grandfather? Yes. Then why don't you just shoot me and get it over with? I need to ask my last question. Once Sarah told her I'm the Pepperidge Farm guy.
I like it.
Once Sarah told her grandfather, after he explained the origin of new life to her, that she believed not all suffering was bad, that good would come from it. I would like you to expand upon that comment. If I give you a really great answer, will you spare me? No, but your answer will give me a certain satisfaction.
Oh, my God.
How do you know that? All your answers do. Page 157.
I sighed. Sigh. I was capable of the gesture
Of sighing?
of sighing,
Is it a gesture?
exhaling breath.
Is that the first time she's breathed this entire time?
Right? All right, I will answer your question. I told my grandfather that if there was no suffering in the world, there would be no compassion. That is the comment in my databanks. Oh, please do continue. My eyes were suddenly damp. Oil was leaking out of them. I understood what was in the black suitcase the robot had brought. It was human tissue to replace the artificial tissue I had in my body so that the police wouldn't become suspicious when an autopsy was performed on me.
Why would she jump to that conclusion? I mean, I'm sure she's right, but why would you fucking go there?
Hang on,
I guess it's a skeleton and a bunch of organs in that suitcase, obviously.
Yeah. Is your briefcase full of goo? Full of human goo?
Well, she's a super intelligent robot. Of course she would jump to that conclusion.
Oh my God.
She has robot legs. She could jump really far.
Yeah.
That was the reason the robot had to mutilate me completely so that my true nature would not be uncovered. So he's just going to like empty a bunch of human goo on the ground and be like, yep, that's Sarah.
But
Yep,
you'd have to
that's
take her robot skeleton out of her
There you
body.
are.
Like, you'd have to replace her entire bone structure.
I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
It was human tissue. I love how vague that is. It's just like, I got a briefcase full of human tissue.
Technically, it was a bunch of dicks. Just a whole bunch of dicks.
You don't want to know where this came from.
I told my grandfather that, I said, but I also wanted to tell him that I loved him. Sarah told me that many times. It is in your data banks. Yeah, I know. But your data banks are lacking in a few areas. I died before I could make it clear to my grandfather.
Is there any chance we could not do the robot voice?
Sure.
Because I don't know if I could do 30 more pages of hearing a robot voice.
Yeah. I died before. I'll just do it
for everyone. Sorry.
I died before I could make it clear to my grandfather that I forgave him for his mistake. Love can do that for humans. Now that I'm talking about love, I feel less robotic. See, made it work. But it also brings the most joy.
It's canon.
It's canon. Can you understand that, grandfather? Even though I call you grandfather like a fucking robot. I expected the robot to deny that he was my grandfather, but he didn't. He just stared at me. He still had the weapon pointed at my head, but something had changed in his robot eyes. Perhaps they were softer, warmer. He changed the color temperature of them. Maybe it was my imagination. Are you going to destroy me now? I asked. Yes. He moved the weapon closer. Goodbye, Sarah. Someone knocked at the front door.
Shit.
Oh, Chapter 15.
Oh my God.
The robot paused. The person knocked again. May I answer it? I asked. Will you tell whoever is there who I am? I seriously doubt they would believe me if I did. Answer my question. If I do tell them, what will you do? In all probability, I will have to destroy them as well as you. You can kill a living human being? I can kill it if it is necessary to stop the suffering of billions of other humans. It is simple math to you. I hate this conversation.
Yeah, it's worse than the last chapter somehow.
Yeah. Yes. Will you tell whoever is there who I am? No, not if you're going to kill them. He removed the weapon from my head and slipped it into his back pocket. You may answer the door after I have lifted Christopher onto the couch. You will act like I am a friend and that Christopher is sleeping.
This is my old friend.
Yeah, this is my very normal friend who talks very normally like humans talk.
Yeah.
You will get rid of whoever is there as fast as possible without appearing strained. Do you understand?
If I don't do these
Do I have to read more? No, I'm not going to.
Oh.
If I don't do these things, it is more likely you will kill whoever is at the door. That is correct. I'll do what you say. May I get up now? Yes. The robot was fast on his feet. He had Christopher resting comfortably on the couch, his feet dangling near the VCR, which was still on the coffee table. What?
Fucking Chekhov's VCR.
Oh, I mean, who claimed that he was going to hit him over the head with it?
Yes. Yeah, that better fucking happen.
Oh, man. And he'll
All
be
right.
like, my circuits.
Near the VCR, which was still on the coffee table before I could round my chair. He had removed the tape from the VCR, the one that chronicled my death, before I could open the door. Hi, has the boogeyman come for you? Ed asked, giggling beside Stacy on the front porch.
Stacy's there.
Stacy!
Stacy's her friend.
They didn't look especially relieved to see me alive. I glanced at my watch. It was only 9:45. A lot had happened in the last few minutes, like me reliving my entire fucking life in the future.
Well,
I had relived an entire
Oh, my
lifetime
God.
to the next line.
Jesus Christ.
I thought you couldn't get off until 10, I said to Ed. Oh, sorry, wrong voice. I thought you couldn't get off until 10, I said to Ed. You sounded so upset. I just closed up, he said. Then I went to the Denny's and you weren't there. You had me worried, Rela. I have to tell you. I called Stacy and told her what was happening, and she thought we should come here. The two of us drove up together. Is that man really following you? Stacy asked. Yes, sort of. I glanced over at the robot. But it's a long story. I'm safe for now. Christopher's here. He's asleep on the couch. He's had a hard day. Is this man a psycho or what? Stacy asked, sticking her nose farther in the door. Hey, who's that guy? I had to act natural. If I didn't, I had no doubt the robot would strike quickly.
Oh, my God.
oh my God, fuck this book.
You turned on
Just
it really
an old
quickly.
friend. Were you enjoying it before, Becca?
No.
No.
In ways, I was jumping the gun.
You-
He's
you-
just stolen so much shit from other shit that I read this name and then I got mad.
Oh.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Just an old friend, I said, and forced to laugh. His name is Hal. Hal, like from 2001. She's friends with every robot.
Yeah.
Hal, come over here and I'll introduce you to Ed and Stacy. Let us come in, Ed said, barging past me. It's chilly out here. He stuck his hand out to the robot. You're Hal. Pleased to meet you. The name's Edward, but everybody calls me Ed except my mother. I'm a friend of Rela's.
What does your mother
robot-
call you?
Asshole.
Shit fuck. And she throws her
Shit fuck's
shoe.
better.
Shit. Fuck.
I know it is vague. He's like, he leaves it open. You're wondering, does the mother call him Edward or does she? Yeah.
Why would
Sweetie
you
pie.
introduce yourself as Edward?
Yeah, right?
Why go through that whole situation, Ed?
Right.
Could just say
That
my
is
name's
true.
Ed.
He is long-winded.
He is.
That is a whole thing of mentioning what your name is, but then saying what you want to be called. I think
This
maybe
is my
that
name.
has just
Don't call me that.
right.
Yeah.
But that's just completely died out now. People just tell you what they want to be called now.
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing that we've gotten better at.
And then you hope that people actually call you that name.
Right.
And they
if your name's
often
Ed,
misspell
they
it.
can theorize. Is this short for Theodore? Is this short for Edward? You know, there's different ways
Yeah.
you can go. Edmund. The robot smiled warmly and shook Ed's hand. It's a pleasure to meet you, Ed, he said sincerely. Wow, where did you get those sweats? Stacy asked the robot. Nordstrom's, the robot said. On
Nordstrom's.
sale. You're Stacy. The robot had not used contractions in his speech until Ed and Stacy entered the house.
thank God.
Of course, there had been no reason for him to try and act human around me. The robot and Stacy shook hands and introduced themselves. Stacy was
was
not as
human.
silly as she acted, as I've often said.
He was human at one point, which is what I'm not understanding.
Like why
He was
he's...
human and then became a robot and
Yeah.
then started talking, robotic, not using contractions. But he was human.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just keep fucking using contractions?
I
Yeah. Well, also,
It's an economical way of speaking.
There's no reason a robot
Right.
wouldn't use contractions.
Yeah, a smart robot would be like, yeah, I'll save time and use some
It
contractions.
was just a trick to trick audiences into thinking an actor was a robot.
Dusty attacked me.
Dusty.
Cat attack. Where are you from, Hal? She asked, and there was a suspicious note in her voice. After all, a strange man had supposedly been following her best friend. Now here was just such a man. It was a shame her concern could get her killed. It was a shame her concern could get her killed? I guess it was. No,
It was a shame her concern could get her killed by this robot.
I get you. See what you're saying. It was a shame that in this case, her concern could get her killed by the robot. New York, the robot said smoothly. I am just... New York. I am just
York
here for the
City.
evening. I am friends with Reverend Lindquist. Is that so? Stacy asked, giving me an inquisitive look. She was searching for signs of anxiety in me, and I was determined to show none. It was easier now that I knew I was a cyborg to control such things. On the outside, at least.
On the inside, my circuits were frying. Hal will be spending the night, I said smoothly. He just got here. I'd have liked to offer him
Nailed
the
it.
couch, but I don't know what to do with this fella here. I gestured to Christopher and giggled. I was a bit puzzled why the gas in the house wasn't getting to Stacy
right,
and
I
Ed
forgot.
as well, but then I remembered the robot had
gassed it.
said it would dissipate quickly. Okay. I forgot that there was, gas. Knockout gas.
The robot farted and it knocked out Christopher.
That tracks.
I could only assume that Christopher had inhaled a fair dose of the gas and that it was still working on his nervous system. He just lay down before Hal got here and passed right out, I said. Weird how all this is talking is not waking him up, Ed observed. He's a heavy sleeper, I said. How do you know? Stacy wanted to know.
It seems that way.
I smiled. A girlfriend knows these things.
Ew.
That is your grandfather. I want to wake him, Stacy said, stepping toward the couch. I stepped in
Classic
her path.
Stacy.
Rela, she asked. Why do you want to wake him? I asked. Let him sleep. I want to talk to him, she insisted. He's tired. Please, just leave him. You can see he's breathing comfortably. He's not dead at all. Hey, there's that amazing machine I sold you. Ed broke in, pointing to the coffee table. Were you taking it somewhere, Rela?
Say it the other way. Were you talking it somewhere?
Were you talking it somewhere, Rela? Yeah, over to Christopher's. I heard he can fix VCRs, Ed said. He can fix just about anything, I said, pointing to my crotch. You left your lethal weapon tape here, Stacy, Ed said. He had found it leaning against a magazine rack not far from the coffee table. He got all excited. Hey, I've got to show Rayla Mel Gibson's butt in slow motion. I can't believe that's the thing that's coming back in this book. John, they talked about Mel Gibson's slow motion butt a lot before in the beginning of the book.
I was just hoping a cassette tape of Lethal Weapon was like future camouflage for a ray gun.
Yeah, something.
That was just very on the nose.
It's just about that tushy.
I swear to you, Stacy, Rayla only got the 4 heads because she wanted to enjoy dirty films to the max. The max. You should have seen her mouth watering when I described how she would be able to slow down the, oh, I'm sorry, Hal, I forgot you were standing there for a second. Please forgive us. We're just crazy California kids, you know. All we talk about is sex in the ozone layer.
All of that was in the book.
I have nothing to add.
Oh my god.
Hal smiled politely. 2 important topics, to be sure. Hey, that's cool, Ed exclaimed. To be sure.
Oh my god. Ed's gonna
phrase,
die.
The phrase is cool?
I hope Ed dies.
He picked up the... You wanted him to save the day before.
I know, but I think it'd be funny if he died.
He picked up the VCR along with the Lethal Weapon tape and took a step toward the TV. I'm sure you won't mind, Hal, if I plug this thing in quick and show Rayla the special features she spent her hard-earned cash to get. Ed, I said, beginning to feel desperate. The robot was giving me looks. He wanted them out of the house soon, or else he was going to have to take matters into his own hands. Another time might be better. Hell, Ed said, already fiddling with the electrical cords at the back of the TV. There's a shot of this woman on the tape I can show Hal. Don't be so uptight, Rela. He's from New York. They vote Democrat up there.
What? Is he talking about the topless girl in the beginning of Lethal Weapon?
I guess. That's kind of a bummer.
She's about to commit suicide, but look at those tits.
She's naked for a couple seconds. Stacy still wasn't sure about Hal. What part of New York are you from? She asked him. Manhattan, the robot said.
Flushing.
I work in the computer industry for a small software firm called Comp Complete. We specialize in operating systems for old IBM mainframes that can't take the new operating systems, but whose operating efficiency can be improved by taking code from parts of the new and blending it with code from the old.
I literally yawned while you were reading that sentence.
The firm has been in business approximately 5 years and has clients in Los Angeles. I am primarily here on a business trip. Oh, Stacy said. He was so smooth. I watched as her suspicions visibly evaporated. I was thankful, and I was crushed. I would be dead that much sooner. Except for maybe Ed. He already had the VCR plugged in and was sticking in the tape. He was about to turn on the TV when the robot interrupted. To be honest, Ed, the robot said, I am tired from my travels and don't think I am in the best state to enjoy a video right now. Would it be possible for us to watch it another time? I would like to retire for the evening shortly. Huh? Ed said, because he didn't speak old, the remote in his hand. Oh, yeah, that would be fine. Hal is very tired, I said, stepping over to Ed. I took the remote from his hand and turned my back to the VCR, shielding it from the rest of the room. The robot had removed the tape of the news from the machine, that was true, but I could feel the movie tape still in place. I had been hiding my robotic ring finger from Stacy and Ed simply by keeping the fingers on my left hand clasped.
Oh, right.
Now, going by feel alone, I pulled the cable free that normally went into the TV and stuck my peeled finger into it.
What?
I remembered my late-night excursions then. This was how I had been impressing the next day's news on the tapes. The robot was preoccupied with Ed.
What?
Ed was telling Hal about a prostitute he once met who was from New York. I pressed the power button on the VCR with my right elbow, my right robotic elbow. I began to record this story at high speed.
Wait, hold on a second.
What?
Let me look at that again.
Yeah.
So she was like blacking out and getting up in the middle of the night and sticking her robot finger into the VCR?
Yeah.
It happened after she cut her finger, so maybe like
It happened
the robot
before
bits.
she cut her finger. The first time it happened was before the party when she cut her finger.
Oh well.
I don't know about before or after cutting her finger.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That's a reveal, right? I mean, that ties
so-
together something.
Yeah.
Were you wondering about the nighttime excursions? Was that something
They kind of explained it in the last chapter, but now they're being really specific where
madness.
she...
I mean, it didn't make any sense, and it still doesn't make a lot of sense. But I guess recording, I don't know, manipulating it from her robot finger makes more sense than her dreams made the VCR tape the future.
Yeah.
right?
Who are we to question how the mind of Dr. Christopher Pike works? He's a doctor now, by
We're
the way.
no one.
I want to hear about this prostitute that her grandfather met in New York one time.
Ed's story.
Ed
No,
was
that Ed met.
Ed. Oh, Ed. Okay.
Ed gets around.
So wait, the story. Oh, that's a tag on the last thing it said. Recording at high speed.
Oh,
the
yeah.
story
Oh,
of Rela
yeah.
and Sarah.
At high speed.
Stacy, Ed, I said, interrupting Ed's ravings. You guys go out and have fun. Leave us sleepyheads alone. Is that what you want? Stacy asked, serious.
Good friend.
Ed glanced around at Christopher, sprawled on the couch, Hal standing perfectly still, and me leaning on the VCR and TV as if I were too tired to stand up on my own. That seems natural. I think that's what they want, Ed said. It is, I agreed. Stacy came over and gave me a brief hug. I patted her with my free right hand, or my reef right hand, as I was about to say.
Right
Stacy's eyes had never looked so kind. Call me the first thing in the morning, you hear? She said. I will, I promised. I kissed her on the cheek. You are my friend. Stacy grinned and rolled her eyes like a fool. You better believe it, babe. She kissed me quickly. Good night, Rela. Good night to both of you, I said.
Several
sadly.
times on the lips.
Good night to both. I said sadly. Good night to both of you. They bid Hal a fine evening and left through the front door. But Ed slammed the door as he left. The robot looked over at me. He began to pull out his ray gun.
I want the exaggerated.
That just feels like if you just took those two sentences, that would feel like the laziest sci-fi writing of all time. The robot looked over at me. He began to pull out his ray gun. But the noise had disturbed Christopher. Someone highlighted the word Christopher, maybe?
There's a highlight that's been going through a few pages.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was originally.
Or maybe the
on.
word his.
But I can't wait for you to read this next sentence.
Yeah.
My boyfriend, grandfather, opened his eyes.
My boyfriend, comma, grandfather.
Grandfather. So is it almost like slash, like my boyfriend slash grandfather?
Yes.
Yeah. My boyfriend, grandfather.
My boyfriend, or as you might know it, grandfather, opened his eyes and looked around. Where am I? He asked.
Chapter 16. The robot motioned for me to remain where I was. I had to if I wanted to stay plugged into the VCR and continue to record my story. So is she like using her eyes as like a camera? Is she just recording this?
Well, no, I think she's uploading all her memories of everything
onto the
that's
tape.
ever happened to her onto the tape.
But it
Yeah.
said recording something about Rela and Sarah. So it sounds like something that hasn't happened yet if she comes across whoever Sarah is. But I don't
she's
know.
Sarah.
She's cutting a
Or she
highlight
was
reel.
Sarah
Oh.
before she was a
Fucking, I
robot.
don't fucking know.
She's cutting a highlight reel.
She's cutting a sizzle reel of her
Yeah.
life. In this very moment, In this very moment, I record this very moment.
What?
I had to stay motionless if I wanted to stay plugged into the VCR and continue to record my story. In this very moment, I record this very moment.
So she's
That is
she's
what you
caught up
said.
to the reality of the beginning of the book.
The book is what she's recording onto the VCR.
And like
I
now
guess.
it's in present tense or
Oh,
future
Jesus
tense or whatever.
Christ. I am fairly
It's a long
certain
tape.
I'll be dead in a few minutes. That's why I said what I did at the beginning. Only a minute passed as a cyborg. Only a minute passed as cyborgs measure time. But nothing is definite yet. I'm having a hard time reading this. If I can get my hands on Christopher and kill him, and I can break his neck as easily as if it were made of straw, then the robot will cease to exist because Christopher will never become him. Okay.
This
back
is
to
what
the
I was
future
asking
rules.
about in
Yeah.
the beginning.
And I will cease to exist because Christopher will never have my mother as a daughter and she will never have me as a daughter. Then the room will be empty except for Christopher's dead body and the news. The second news will be on TV tomorrow night as scheduled. Christopher sat up and looked around. Rela? He mumbled groggily, but then his eyes fell on the robot and he sat up straighter. Who are you? He asked. The robot looked remarkably like an older version of Christopher in his photograph. What photograph? But in person,
question.
with his weird gray cat eyes, the resemblance faded. Well, yeah, he's got robot eyes.
It struck me then that my grandfather had spoken of meeting me, Sarah, when he was in high school. Yet when I was still human, still his granddaughter, he had not recognized me as the young woman he had known as a kid.
He definitely did.
Okay, she just said he did.
No, well.
Okay, so
You dumb idiot, Jonathan.
I suppose the cyborgs had not gone out of their way when they constructed my body to make me look identical to my stunning original. Although from my memories of Sarah, I knew a resemblance was still there. So she doesn't even look the same. So I had come back before, or maybe this was before. I fucking...
See, this is the problem with time
I
travel, is you can
have
get really
no
sloppy
brain cells.
and just be like, it's time travel.
I'm just going to read the words and not try to understand them because they don't make sense.
Okay.
Maybe it was just one big circle of time where cause and effect chased each other like cats after their own tails. But if that was so, I had already failed and couldn't win. Yet I had discussed that exact point with my grandfather. It was possible that simply the knowledge that one timeline of Rela had failed could allow me to be victorious. In either case, I knew what I had to do. I had to kill Christopher. For mankind, I had to keep telling myself that. My name is Hal, the robot said smoothly. I'm a friend of Rayla's father. I'm from New York.
She keeps saying that he speaks smoothly. I'm just picturing him being like, my name is Hal.
Yeah. Christopher looked at me.
I'm a friend of her dad's.
No doubt he was thinking about the strange man who had supposedly been chasing me. The situation was curious. I knew the robot didn't want to take overt action in front of Christopher because he wanted to affect the course of his life as little as possible. Frying my guts with a laser pistol a few feet away from the budding young scientist would not be at the top of the robot's agenda. I realized I could force a scene, but something made me wait.
You understand what I say made instead of makes, for the sake of continuity of form in my story.
Oh my god.
I am waiting now. Christopher is fidgeting on the couch.
Oh my god.
Is that true, Rela? He asked. Yes, I said. Hal and my father have been friends for a long time. You don't need to stay. Hal will be spending the night. I'll be perfectly safe. But you were anxious to leave a minute ago, Christopher said. I overreact at times. Christopher frowned. Wait a second. I fainted. Did you see me faint?
Was it embarrassing?
Yes, I said. You work too hard. You need to rest. You should go home to bed. Really, I'm okay. But I've never fainted in my life, Christopher said, slowly getting to his feet. I don't understand it. How long have you been here, Hal? I just arrived, the robot said. You were asleep on the couch. I didn't know that you had fainted. The robot sure could lie, I thought, but Christopher was staring at him, and I remembered how perceptive he could be, 'cause I love him so much. He had the sense that there was something different about Hal. What kind of work are you in, Hal? Christopher asked. I work in the computer industry for a small software firm called CompComplete. We specialize in operating systems for old IBM mainframes that can't take the new operating systems, but whose operating efficiency can be improved by taking code for parts of the new and blending it with code for the old.
God damn it.
I think it is
The
verbatim.
firm has been in business approximately 5 years and has clients in Los Angeles. I am primarily here on a business trip.
Get
How many more? I hope he says that more.
It was word for word the same answer he had given Stacy. It seemed to put Christopher at ease as well. He smiled. You have the right name for being in the computer industry, he said. Christopher is referring to the computer in 2001, A Space Odyssey, I said.
We know.
I know the movie, the robot said. Hal went nuts and killed most of the human crew, I said, staring at the robot. He had lousy programming. That would never happen in real life, the robot said, staring back at me. He didn't know what I'd do next. Christopher took a step past the robot, moving closer to me. I continued to hang on to the VCR cord. I guess I should be going if you feel everything's all right, Christopher said. Everything's fine, I said. I'll see you at school tomorrow. Christopher grinned. Hopefully after school. You know you owe me a date. You stood me up on Tuesday. I'm sorry. Yes. I promise I'll make it up to you later. Christopher looked over at Hal, then back at me. Do you want to walk me out, Rela? The robot shook his head faintly. There was still plenty of time left to throw my scene. But once more I hesitated. Throw my scene. But once more I hesitated because I didn't know what that meant. Christopher only had to come 5 feet closer, I thought, and I'd be able to snap his neck. It's cold outside, I said. Why don't you just kiss me goodbye here?
No.
Or don't kiss.
No, or you could not. My boldness surprised Christopher.
Because he was my grandpa.
But he was obviously shy about kissing me in front of a stranger. I felt nothing incestuous in the suggestion. The body I was in now had nothing to do with the body his daughter had given birth to.
Don't you try to justify this
Bit of a
shit.
stretch.
Don't.
Bit of a stretch
When you're
there,
including
Pike.
that, whenever
really
you're including
related.
you're trying to explain that, you should just not. You know what I mean? Like whenever that's what you're trying to. Oh, by the way, here's how it's not incest.
By the way,
It's technically not incest.
right, exactly.
if one of you is a robot, technically it's not incest. John,
Before you get grossed out, let me explain how technically this is not
the
incest.
second Christopher Pike book we've ever read on the podcast, and this is also the second Christopher Pike book that has incest in it. Just letting
I would
that
totally
one
hang
lay
out
there.
with a robot me.
Would you do him?
Would you make
Well,
out
no,
with a
because
robot?
it's
You
a robot me, so neither of us would make the first move. It would just be tension.
Just tension, just sexual tension.
Because both of us would be like,
delightful
well,
tension.
normally they get frustrated enough and make the first move at this point, and he isn't. And it's like, oh, and then we would both say out loud at the same time, oh, and then we would both say it the first time, at the same time. You're waiting for me to make the first move, and it'd be like a whole comedy of errors.
And then like on you'd be celebrating like a month anniversary and thanking each other for not making the move. You know?
Where the fuck was I? Incest.
Yeah, right.
So only the brain and spinal cord were the same. The lips were different.
Brain being the same is enough.
That's another thing where it's like under the law,
Consciousness.
we all know that if it's just the brain and the spinal cord,
Okay, so this
it's
is
not
let's see,
incest.
page 170 out of 180. We are at the
Christ.
apologizing or not apologizing, excusing incest point in the
Yeah.
book. The body I was in now had nothing to do with the body his daughter had given birth to. Only the brain and spinal cord were the same. The lips were different. Plus, I wasn't going to kiss him.
Well, then why fucking
I was
backpedal so hard about what's incest and what's not?
I love this so
Christopher
much.
Pike just put that in there.
This is amazing. Okay. Plus, I wasn't going to kiss him. I was going to rub his neck. I
know.
was going to press my fingers deep between his cervicals until I heard a distinct snapping. So there's this whole paragraph where she was
Is that
like,
the right word?
she's like, don't worry. Me kissing him isn't gross or weird or a big deal. Here's why. And also, by the way, I'm not even going to kiss him. I'm just going to fucking kill him.
Yeah.
Like, start with that. You don't have to do the part where you're like, and also, by the way, even if I did kiss him,
I'm
it's
not
like,
going to kiss him, but if I did, here's a bunch of reasons why it's not incest.
She already, yeah,
Well, Christopher
maybe-
Pike, you know how you have like a sticky? He had like a sticky with this great paragraph about how kissing your grandfather is not incest.
Yeah.
And he was like, where can I fit
But
that
only
in? And he was
if
like,
you're
I
a
finally,
robot.
I finally can use that.
It isn't where can I fit that in. He started with that, and
Yeah.
he was like, "How can I make a whole book to lead to this?"
He was
one
like,
moment
what if the only same parts
brilliance?
of you are your brain and spinal cord, but everything else is different? Different lips?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the same lips that are kissing him. It's fine. Silently, I began to weep inside because I realized it was incest. It was for everybody, I told myself. The whole planet. Christopher took a step closer. He was almost in range. I couldn't fail. I had sacrificed my life to succeed. Are you going to bed right away? He asked. Yes. I glanced at the robot. I'll sleep. It's been a while since I really rested. Christopher also threw the robot another look. He was obviously trying to give him a nonverbal suggestion that he wanted to be alone with me for a minute. But the robot, of course, wouldn't allow that. So when do you want to get together? Christopher asked me. Tomorrow
It's
night
like
would be
Gavin
good.
from Kids in the Hall.
That's what I'm doing, yeah.
So,
Oh, these kids from school?
they smoke.
What time? Any time is good, I added. Any time with you is good. Okay.
him!
Christopher took another step closer. He was
Kill him.
Kill him.
Destroy.
he was close enough to grab now. Behind Christopher, on my right, the robot put his hand in his back pocket. My body shielded my left hand from the robot. My right hand was free. If I lashed
Wait,
out with
hold
it
on. The robot put his hand in
in
his
his back pocket to get his phaser.
Okay.
If I lashed out with it, with a single karate chop to the neck, it would crush Christopher's spinal cord.
I can't remember, when did she discover she had super strength?
when she remembered all of
I
it.
think
She
when
just
she-
like remembering
I think-
she has super strength, but she hasn't really done anything.
Yeah, she hasn't
with
tried
yet.
it.
Okay.
I think she's just like, I
She's
could.
trusting her memories to karate chop
I
someone's
bet
neck.
I could karate chop his neck until he's dead.
Okay. Is
I want a
this
whole
me now?
montage of
Yeah.
her going to carnival games and betting on whether she can win every
Yeah.
carnival game.
There
with her
should have
eye.
been a scene in the book where she did something and it was like, fuck,
Like, how
you're
could you be so
strong.
strong?
Right, right.
Yeah.
She
There
should've,
wasn't
like,
anything like that. She's just been talking about how she can crush people's spinal columns and
Yeah.
shit
Well,
like
we
that.
had her cutting
It started
her.
this chapter.
We had a scene of her cutting her finger like to what she thought was the bone, and
the
then not
wire.
really reacting.
Yeah.
And then going to Blockbuster. He would die instantly. There would be no pain for him. I could give back humanity's pain. I could give back their life by taking just this one life, but I couldn't do it. I felt my eyes moisten. Some cyborg, I couldn't find the switch to turn off the tears.
It's probably because she's a lady cyborg.
Oh, God. I built extra tears into those. Christopher put his left hand on my shoulder. What's the matter? He asked, worried. Behind Christopher, the robot withdrew his ray gun. Hold on, I got distracted by that yellow blob. Ray gun and put it at my head. But he was a few feet away. I had Christopher practically in my hands. It would be a test of reflexes, but I believed I could win. At the very least, I could pull Christopher into the line of fire. But I loved him, my grandfather. I had treated him with scorn for what he had done, but I had never stopped looking up to him. I couldn't do it. I had to do it. I just hate to see you go, I said, taking his hand with my free hand. My tears were flowing now. I was the one bawling, but Christopher's hand felt so fragile in mine. It was only flesh and blood. It could suffer pain. I was not supposed to know pain anymore, yet it was all I knew in that moment. Then I knew what I had told the robot was true. I was human. I had survived. My soul, it was real. Christopher touched my face. But I will see you tomorrow, Rela. Sarah. What? My real name is Sarah.
Why have you been going by Rela? I grinned like I grin. See, you've been doing the Kids in the Hall character. I've just been doing straight up neuroatypical.
Same thing.
I grinned like a silly, sad fool. It's a long story. Maybe sometime I can tell you, but call me Sarah. Say goodbye, Sarah. You're a great girl. That's so fucking gross.
You're one dynamite gal.
How fucking gross that is.
Call
You're
me
great. He told me, and he hugged
That
me.
is not what she asked, you idiot.
Tell me you're proud of me.
I snuggled my head into his shoulder, gross, and watched as the robot lowered his weapon. He knew I could now do to Christopher what I wished, and he would not be able to stop me. I held on to Christopher with my free hand, but I didn't touch him with the other. I ran my hand up his spine to his neck, my fingers pressed into his skin there, and he seemed to sigh. He was tense, and I knew I could relax him permanently. Or he was uncomfortable being touched. You know, did we ever think of that? That maybe he just doesn't like being touched? But once more, I couldn't do it. I had killed myself, but I could not kill another. It wasn't because of some cyborg programming. It was just me. I wasn't strong enough. I love you, I whispered in his ear. The human race would die because of my love. He squeezed me tighter. God. I love you, he said, but more as like a response and not because he meant it. Then he let me go and brushed a tear off my cheek. You take care of yourself, Sarah, he said. I let him go. I will, I promised. We'll have fun tomorrow night. It will be wonderful, I patted his shoulder. Remember, he was puzzled. Remember what? I'm sorry. Remember the butterflies in the trees?
What?
He grinned at my sentimentality.
What?
I think it's a callback to something that
I don't
she had
remember.
said to
Probably
her
in that
grandfather.
last section we read that I don't fucking
probably.
know.
Remember the butterflies in the trees? He grinned at my sentimentality. And Sarah. I smiled. Most of all, Sarah, I swallowed. Goodbye. Goodbye, he said.
Someone die.
Christopher said so long to the robot and left the house. I watched him go. I watched the bright flame of the future leave to burn a scar across the path of human destiny.
Jesus
Wow.
Damn,
Christ.
Christopher fucking Pike. Please, John, reread that sentence again.
Anybody have a mic to drop?
We have them all around us.
I watched
Damn it.
him go. I watched the bright flame of the future leave to burn a scar across the path of human destiny.
God damn, that's good shit.
Now that's the kind of line that Christopher Pike wrote, did Control Save, and then just like shotgunned cocaine.
Yeah.
Like I fucking did it.
And then fucked a spinal column and a brain and said, see, this isn't my grandmother. You could have killed him, the robot said when we were alone. Yes. That was your purpose in coming back. Yes. Why did you not try to complete your mission? Because I have something inside me greater than anything you have. I stared at the robot. The future you come from is nothing. We are highly advanced. We want for nothing. Because you have nothing. I have no more questions for you. He took the weapon from his pocket. I feel like he's taken the weapon from his pocket like 17 times.
Here-
but
yeah,
I don't know
like
that he's
what?
put it
Did he
back.
put it
every
back
time.
He just
because
likes the way
Christopher
it
turned
feels. He practices a lot in the mirror.
It's like a hip flask, like it's
Yeah.
butt shaped. And he's just like,
Yeah.
"Mm."
Hey, he just likes the feel of it. It's like a fidget spinner.
Yeah.
It will be better if you move away from the TV. You think you've won, I said. I have won. You've lost. Or you have lost. You will be destroyed now. He'll remember me. That is understood.
Remember me.
That's the name of the other book.
Oh, there's another book?
Well, there's
The other
the-
Christopher Pike book that we read on the podcast
yeah.
was
Oh,
titled
okay.
"Remember Me."
So this is like the little self-reference.
I think
He'll remember me.
was first.
That is
They start
understood.
talking about who went to the bathroom.
I remember you, but you don't know me. He knows me. It will make no difference. New life will happen. I didn't have time to sit and peer into the future, although I had the ability to do so. Just wanted you to know. But a feeling suddenly swept over me from seemingly nowhere. It sweeps over me now. I don't know exactly what it is, but there is hope in it. Not hope for today or tomorrow or even 1,000 years from now, but hope nevertheless that life will go on and find something greater than a mechanized grave.
What?
In a sense, I want the same thing that my grandfather wanted, that people should not suffer.
Yet I am not like him. He remade himself so that he could live for eternity. Yet he never defeated the eternal enemy.
Said
No, not the cyborgs or the robots. The enemy is fear. Simple fear. The eternal enemy is fear.
The fifth element is love, and the eternal enemy is fear.
Grandfather
And we are the Walking Dead.
was and I am Spartacus. Grandfather
Exactly.
was always afraid of suffering. I am not afraid. I want something more for people. I want them to be happy, and I believe our suffering as a race can eventually bring us to a place of great wonder. For all I have suffered since I came
Wonder.
back in time, I have been happy to be alive. It will make a big difference, I whisper. The robot shakes his weapon. Move!
Everybody shakes their weapon.
Move! I have died before. No one should mourn this, my second death. I begin to remove my finger from the VCR cable.
Oh god, it's been there the whole time.
Where do you... Where do you wish me to stand? I ask the robot.
Okay, good point, Becca. Imagine how if you were to like dramatize this, imagine how static that scene was. She was
Yes.
standing in one spot with her finger in the back of a VCR
like-
Having
the
that
whole time.
long, weird hug with Christopher, but just also like plugged into a fucking
And there's a
VCR
guy
with
across
one
the room
hand,
like putting a gun in his pocket, and
That's
taking
the
it out.
ready to
repeatedly.
karate chop her boyfriend grandfather.
They're both acting like non-playable characters in a video game.
That's the main problem with adaptation of a book is like how do you get that inner monologue in a scene that
Yeah.
in reality took 3 seconds,
Right,
but
right.
in their head took a fucking hour and a half.
And also the flip of that is when you're doing a book, like sometimes if you lose track of a character and don't say what they're doing, then you are later reminded, oh, they're still standing in this fucking room. It's like you realize there's been like 2 or 3 characters just kind of milling about a room for the last
Yeah.
10 pages or something.
That's why it's easier to adapt older books where they really don't get into what the character's thinking at all. Like
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings. He spent most of the time talking about trees. Didn't talk about what a single character was thinking at all across 4 books. You have no idea what any of them are thinking.
That sounds terrible, actually, when you describe it that way. But I haven't
Those
read
books
it in
are
a while,
boring, and I'm a nerd, and I admit that.
so that's fine. Okay, so we're at the epilogue. We're at the epilogue now.
Yep.
So here we go. Okay. Rela had been dead a month when her foster father came over to Christopher's house with the VCR under his arm. Just the whole
Yes.
not the tape, the whole fucking
The
VCR.
whole VCR. Take it, I don't want it.
At the time, Christopher was alone, working in his bedroom on a program that he believed would boost the sensitivity of his biofeedback machine twofold.
Sorry, hang on. I gotta interrupt for 1 second. So he killed her and then dumped a bunch of human goo on the ground, like taking her robot parts with him. So The fucking poor old Reverend Spencer Lindquist came home to find his adopted foster daughter in just like blood and gore on the ground. That's so fucked up.
Well, it's not the first time.
That's what?
Well, it's happened like a bunch of times. He just always brings in girls. They end up getting murdered.
Oh God!
It's just Wednesday for him.
That's gonna mess him up for the rest of his entire life.
Biofeedback machine. He heard the knock, though, and met Rela's father at the door and invited him inside. The minister sat on the sofa, resting the VCR on his lap, and Christopher sat on a nearby chair. He offered Rayla's father something to drink, but the man said he was fine. Why aren't we using his name?
Wait, right?
We know his name. I don't have a lot of time to spare, the man, Spencer, said. But I wanted to stop by and say hi. We haven't talked since the funeral. I haven't talked to many people since the funeral, Christopher said. Reverend Lindquist nodded sympathetically. Nor have I. But I have others to care for, and, as they say, life goes on. I'm already over that bitch.
Yeah.
I don't know about you.
Easy come, easy go, am I right?
Yeah. He coughed suddenly, as if he didn't truly believe his words. Aw. He removed a handkerchief from his pocket and dabbed his forehead before continuing.
I just got to figure out who's talking. Okay.
Spencer.
Hard to imagine she's gone. I wake up
Forgot.
in the morning and keep expecting to see her at the table, eating her Cheerios. She loved Cheerios in the morning with lots of milk on them. He shrugged. But she's never there, because she's dead. I
don't know why that was funny to me.
Christopher
Lots of
said.
milk on them. I guess I think of the Cheerios as in the milk anyway.
No, they sit at the bottom.
With milk on top.
A nice layer of milk on top.
I like to buy those extra dense Cheerios.
I miss her, Christopher said. Reverend Lindquist studied him closely with his reverend eyes. I see that. You only knew her a short time, but she got to you too, didn't she?
You
She was a
all only knew her a
remarkable
short
girl.
time. You knew her the same amount of time. Like 3 months.
3 months.
She was a remarkable girl. There was something different about her. Almost reminds me of an old show in the 80s called Small Wonder. About a robot girl. Maybe she was a robot. I only wish I had known her better, Christopher said. He didn't know what else to
You
say.
will.
Words did nothing to soothe his grief. It had not eased during the past month. It had only gotten worse. He doubted it would ever truly be gone. I'm sorry, the minister said. I'm intruding on your pain. When his words trailed off and his eyes moistened, he lowered his head. It's just that I have so much myself. I guess I want to share it. Christopher leaned forward and touched the man on the knee like normal people do, I guess. I would never do that.
Touched him on the knee.
It's a little high.
Knee touch. Don't apologize. She loved you a great deal. Anytime you want to talk to her, please come over, but also
About
don't.
her.
Yeah.
He looked up. Did you know I was only her foster father? Yes, she told me. I only knew her 3 months.
Yeah, we all
which
did.
is insane. I didn't realize it was that short a time. Reverend Lindquist nodded. 3 months. She was like a shooting star in my life. Bright, beautiful, and then gone so quickly.
She took
police still
$500
don't-
from me.
The police still don't know anything? Rayla's father shook his head sadly. Nothing. Your description of that man, Hal, has led them nowhere.
What happened to all of her money? Did she leave him 20 grand? Is that money just
Oh,
like
she
sitting
should have.
somewhere?
Yeah, did she have a bank account? She couldn't have. She's only 3 months
She's
old.
only
She
3
doesn't have a
months
social
old.
security number.
There should be a duffel bag full of 20 grand in cash in his house that like he comes home and finds goo and is
We
just
have
like,
3 pages left. Maybe we'll get there.
oh my God.
So what? Where did the 20,000 come from? Maybe I missed that.
Vegas, when she went to Vegas.
Oh, from all the.
From the one
from the
time
Biff
she
Tannen.
gambled from the
Yeah.
All right. He stopped himself before he was taken over by his sorrow. He patted the VCR. The main reason I came by was to give you this. Rela bought it just before she died. He set it on the sofa beside him. I never watch tapes myself. I thought she'd want you to have it.
Too much work.
That's very kind of you, Christopher said. Reverend Lindquist spoke suddenly. Rela had $21,000 in her chest of drawers.
There you go.
Yes. Oh, I'm
Christopher
so glad.
sat up with a start.
Christopher
Really?
Pike knows what he's doing.
All right.
Do you know where she got it? No. Did you tell the police? Yes. The man shrugged.
I'm a reverend.
Yes, I'm a reverend. That's what we do. We call the cops. It didn't help. They told me to keep it, and then they shot 3 black people. I plan to give it to the mission.
I don't think
He added, what?
it just seems unlikely that the cops would not investigate
Oh,
that
I
any
feel like
further.
the cops would be like, it's evidence.
Yeah.
Bye.
Where was I? I plan to give it to them. I plan to give it to the mission. He added, if that's okay with you. I don't want any money, Christopher said.
His money.
Right?
I thought as much. There we go. The older man said. The older man stood. He does like to refer to people as like the old man, the robot. You know, like he doesn't
Yeah.
want to use character names. For
Yeah,
some
we're at
reason.
the end of the fucking book, and we know all of their names.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'd better be going. I have to be at the mission in half an hour. Did you know that's where I met Rela? I didn't know that either. A man brought her in from the street. She only had on a green hospital gown. Can you imagine? She was wandering around in a daze. We never did find her real family. He dabbed at his face again with his handkerchief. I'm certainly not trying to find them now. Story over.
Now that she's goo in the ground.
Now that this book is ending,
You in the ground.
and she's just goo. You are good to her.
We could fit her into a pizza box.
Ew!
The man's hurt was like an open wound. I should have taken better care of her. It wasn't your fault. It happened. What can you do? I like how everyone's just like absolving themselves
Yeah.
of any sadness here. It's like, you're right, we should all feel great.
Yeah.
Reverend Lindquist shook his head. I'm the minister here. I should be saying those things.
He patted Christopher on the back.
I bet it was a good back pat.
It's like not too soft, but not too hard.
Like just a perfect back
Perfect
pat.
little back pat.
Like a back pat that actually makes you feel nice instead of just like, why are you hitting me?
Mm-hmm. Hope to see you again soon, young man. Enjoy the VCR. Rayla had to save to buy it, and I still don't think she paid it off, even with that $21,000 I found. Christopher didn't tell the minister Rayla's correct name. Let her father remember her as he knew her, he thought. I might use it today, he said. Christopher had not really meant he'd use it. He had a VCR of his own, and it was a better one than Rayla's, that piece of shit.
How many heads did it have?
His had 8
Six?
heads.
Eight.
What a brat. What a
8
humble brag.
heads.
Damn.
He installed 4 of the heads himself. But when the minister was gone, Christopher carried the VCR into his bedroom and made love to it. He set it on his desk.
You laugh so hard at your own joke.
I know.
That's the best laugh there is.
I was proud about it, and I didn't care if anyone else noticed. On impulse, he plugged it into his TV. He noticed there was a tape already in the machine. The first Lethal Weapon. Back to this. He had no desire to see the movie again, but rewound the tape as a matter of habit. He was turning back to his program for his biofeedback machine when he accidentally bumped the VCR play button with his elbow. Maybe
Dumb.
it was fate.
Dumb.
Rayla's face sprang onto the screen. Sarah, she was talking. She was in the middle of telling a story. No, she was in the middle of telling her story. Her story. He could see on her tape. He could see her on the tape doing the things she was describing in full living color. He didn't understand how this could be. He had never seen a tape before so rich in definition. It was 1993 after all.
Right.
And her voice, it sounded as if she were right there in the room with him. Christopher
It had to be 640 pixels by 480 pixels at least.
Christopher hit the stop button and hastily rewound the tape to start at the beginning. I was just a normal teenage girl. I loved beautiful clothes and loud music, long telephone conversations, and sleepy summer evenings.
Oh my fucking god.
This is how the book started, John.
I was about to say, is that the beginning
This
of
is
the
the
book?
beginning
I
of the
figured
book, John.
The listeners should know there are italics at this point to tell us, like it's like the wavy, image of a picture that's telling you it's a flashback.
Most of all, I loved cookies and boys. My favorite cookies were chocolate chip with milk. You've got to have milk to have cookies. That's what I've always said.
Now, Becca, start reading the page. Stop just talking about your preferences.
I thought you wanted to get to know me a little more. I'm trying to share my truth with you.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have been so rude.
Your truth is that you love cookies.
It's my truth. It's time I stop hiding it.
Oh, shit.
My favorite boys. Well, actually, I had only one favorite boy. His name was Christopher.
Becca, I said.
He's my favorite. If you wouldn't interrupt me, maybe you'd make it to the list. But Christopher's my favorite. My name is Rela. ...
Oh, fuck.
Christopher finished watching the tape 2 hours later.
That's all it took?
Jesus. I was thinking that sounds long as shit.
She really blew through her life.
He scooted back from his desk and turned
there probably
off.
wasn't a bunch of drunk assholes interrupting the tape.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like chapter 13 was 2 straight hours.
He turned off both the TV and the VCR. Night had fallen by then, but he left the light off. He often thought best sitting alone in the dark. He believed the tape was accurate. The fact that it existed was proof enough. Also, he wasted no time wrestling with the wonder of it. He had been dreaming about the origin of the universe since he was 10. He wasn't surprised that it was his fate to one day discover it. He had always known he was a man of destiny. Density.
He's full of himself.
You are my density.
He's a man of density. But what did he know? What was he supposed to learn in the years to come? It appeared an immensity, yet he had been struck while watching the tape by how much better Rela had understood what was important in life than her grandfather. That man comprehended the universe. She knew people. He might be the new Einstein. She had been. She would be special. I knew her, he thought. I will know her. And she was right at the end. I already see her in a light her grandfather never did. I will remember her as she wanted me to, and perhaps the circle of mankind's time will be healed.
Take us home, Becca.
God. He was grateful the tape had stopped before she died. He hadn't liked the robot. I will never become that thing, Christopher said with bitterness in his voice, but also with resolve. Never.
Look for
Christopher Pike's The Immortal, coming in July 1993.
Well, I mean, that's the next one we're reading, right? The Immortal. Can I read the about the
want
author?
to stop reading them. Yes. Yes, you may.
About the author. Christopher Pike was born in Brooklyn, New York, but grew up in Los Angeles,
So he had a
where
weird
he lives
accent.
to this day. Prior to becoming a writer, he worked in a factory, painted houses, and programmed computers.
So he fucking is Christopher grandfather
Jesus
boyfriend.
Christ.
His hobbies include astronomy, meditating, running, playing with his nieces and nephews, and making sure his books are prominently displayed in local bookstores.
Making sure.
Oh boy,
Sounds
he's that kind of
threatening.
guy.
Does
like
he go
he's
in and
the
just
al-
move
just like-
them to the window?
It's not just that guy. He mentions it in his bio.
Yeah, I feel like he walks into local bookstores in LA. He's like, where is it? Where is it?
Yeah.
Eternal Enemy just came out. Put it in the fucking window. I'm Christopher Pike.
He is the author of Last Act, Spellbound, Gimme a Kiss, Remember Me, Scavenger
Remember
Hunt,
Me.
Final Friends 1, 2, and 3.
Final friend.
Well,
I want to read Gimme a Kiss.
Make a note about Final Friends because it's
Yeah.
1, 2, and 3.
No,
Yeah.
we're not reading. No, remember we.
Fall into Darkness, See You Later, Which, Die Softly. Make a note about Die Softly. Bury
The prequel to Die Hard.
Whisper of Death, Chain Letter 2, The Ancient Evil. So did he not write Chain Letter 1?
He did, but it wasn't good enough to list on here.
Master of Murder, Monster, Road to Nowhere, and The Eternal Enemy. All available from Archway paperbacks. Slumber Party, Weekend, Chain Letter,
there
The
you
Season
go.
of Passage, and Sati, an adult novel about a very unusual lady. Also by Mr. Pike. So wait, Chain Letter 1 is also by Christopher
It's
Pike. but
probably
they
not
mentioned
from
Chain
Archway
Letter 2.
paperbacks.
Yes, that might be why they
Yeah.
mentioned it
Okay.
separately.
Different publisher.
But I also
Yeah.
love The Season of
Tell me
Passage.
more about
and
Sati.
I know.
An adult novel about a very unusual
It's full.
lady.
It's got to be full of fucking, like hardcore fucking.
What if it's just the crying game? About a very
But Chris, here's the
unusual
thing
lady.
about- here's
You'll
the
never
thing-
guess what her secret is.
Here's the thing about
She's got a
Final Friends
dick.
1, 2, and 3. Remember when we read Remember Me and we were like, holy shit, there are 3 Remember Me's. We got to read all of them. And then by the time we got to the end of it, we were like, we're never going to fucking ever touch Remember Me 2
yeah.
and 3. We can't
No,
commit
like
to a. No, we're not committing to a trilogy.
We thought about it, and then we looked up the synopses of the future ones, and they had nothing to do with the detective, which was the only
That's the only
character
good
we
part, yeah.
liked. And we were like, yeah, fuck this.
Honestly, Give Me a Kiss is my top pick because what the fuck is that title? Give me a
I'm
kiss.
intrigued by Die Softly. I'm also intrigued by like The Immortal or whatever the fuck it was.
Look, I'll read every we put them all in a hat and draw one blindly. Just kidding. We'll find one that's on Open Library.
Well, I have a list. I had that list
Yes.
with some synopses. And I think Chain Letter was one that I was interested in reading. Alfie, what are you doing?
I have a theory. He wanted to be a serious sci-fi author and then realized there was money in young adult novels. And he's like, okay, I'm going to try to shoehorn some big ideas into these novels. And then they got edited to hell. Maybe it's not his fault that they're so fucking weird.
Oh yeah,
You
Chain
think
Letter.
somebody edited in all the incest?
Yeah, maybe
look.
that was the editor's agenda.
So-
I don't know.
Oh yeah, all of those are on our list.
Yeah, we had come up with a list before, and we'll revisit this, eventually sooner than later. So out of the 4 Christopher Pike books that we had just like initially chosen that we have access to read, aside from The Eternal Enemy, we have Chain Letter, Die Softly, and Whisper of Death. So we'll probably pick one of those 3 to be our next Christopher Pike book. But our next book, the next book we read on this show will definitely be a palate cleanser, something very different than Christopher Pike. Although we're gonna head back to Pikeland
Pikeland
very soon.
Pikeland is great.
John, what did you think?
I thought it was, by the time it was narrowing down, it's like I could see we were going into this time paradox robot thing. So I do think Terminator is definitely like the touchstone for this book in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Like, it's playing with the similar stuff as that series. But I don't know if I had an expectation. I feel like I have some pre-existing. Didn't I help on another Pike book, or am I imagining that?
You probably read some of Remember Me with us. That was the Ghost Girl one where she dies in the beginning
familiar.
and then spends the whole book as a ghost, like with a ghost boyfriend,
Following around an alcoholic detective.
trying to figure out who killed her. Yeah,
And they have to like hitch the ride in the back of pickups because they can't just fly.
they
to
can't
wherever
just
they
fly.
need to go.
I forgot they had to like get transportation as ghosts. Oh fuck, that was funny. That was so good.
Like the guy's got big ideas.
Oh yeah,
But that's
I'm
what I was
here
going to
for
say.
it.
Is it seems like he's like there's like a hat on a hat thing going on with both of those books, where it's like it's not just a ghost thing; it's a ghost thing plus all this other stuff. And it's like this is not just time travel robot stuff, but there's also incest. And there's also some kind of like videotape memory. Definitely there's
most of this book.
There's a lot going on.
Most of the book was the Magic VCR. Like, I'm not even kidding. I would say like at least 80% of this book was
Yeah.
a VCR that tells the future,
And then it turns out the VCR wasn't important at all.
it's just a fucking VCR.
Until the very end, which actually at the very end, the
That's
VCR
true.
was very important.
Very important.
It prevented a horrible future.
Changed the course of history. I can't believe she got like exploded with a ray gun.
Maybe the guy's a fucking genius. I don't fucking know.
It's the only book I think I've ever read any part of where the climax, the hero was spent with their finger in a VCR. I really don't think that I've read another book where that happens. So that's neat. You
You don't
That's
see it
something
very often.
No, you don't see it.
Oh my god.
yeah, it's like
I mean, maybe people who are more worldly than me
list.
and who read more books are more familiar with that kind of idea.
Yeah.
But for me, that's a first.
John, did you watch any of the Midnight Club on Netflix?
No, I
Okay.
did. I like Mike Flanagan's stuff, and I, for whatever reason, didn't catch that one yet.
one of the
So-
episodes is the Eternal Enemy.
Oh, it is.
So the Midnight Club is every episode is an adaptation of a Christopher Pike book. Like, so the whole show is actually it's a Christopher Pike show. I had no fucking idea. We found that out while we were reading this book, and we haven't seen any of the show either. So like, after
I am now desperate to watch that episode.
yeah, we gotta
Next Saturday,
after we watch-
should get fucked up and watch the Eternal Enemy.
yeah, we gotta watch that episode. We gotta watch the new Mandalorian, and then we gotta watch Christopher Pike show. Because I am also like I'm desperate to see specifically that episode with the Magic VCR.
I wonder if there's incest in it. Like, I wonder if they
My
include
God.
any of that or if they just lean into the VCR thing.
Yeah. I feel like they definitely said. I bet if there's one thing they took out, it's the incest.
Only watch that episode though, because we don't want to spoil further
Other books, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Pike
true.
works.
Yeah. I don't want to watch the whole
Or
thing, and then
works
we
of Pike.
start reading "Gimme a Kiss," and I'm like, oh, I know what happens.
The Bard
one
of our
wasn't on
time,
my list.
Christopher Pike.
It's probably not good. We should look it up though. All right. Well, that was it for us reading The Eternal Enemy. This was goddamn. This was a banger. This was such a good one.
Yeah, it had everything. it had teenage lust, incest.
I can tell you the cover of Gimme a Kiss
Ooh,
was
please.
not even close to being what I imagined.
Yeah.
It had robots, time
The
travel.
cover of this book was nowhere what I thought it was going to be. Wait, what the fuck? Okay, both of you. Start with Chris. What do you think the cover of Gimme a Kiss looks like?
I imagine it would be like this book, a very out of context image that makes total sense when you finish the book.
No, you got to be specific. I'm telling you to.
All right. I'm gonna say it's some sort of person
There is a person. You're
having
correct so far.
like a come hither attitude towards what I assume is the main character, but there's a nature about the person with the come hither attitude, the way that like there's something more to them.
Okay. John, what do you think the cover of Gimme a Kiss looks like?
I was going to say something similar, but I was thinking like maybe that there is no other character that the
Find
it's
it
like
here.
looking out at the viewer. You know, whoever's looking at the cover is locking eyes with the otherwise, like as Chris said, he was saying like creepy, or I think it should be like an old person or a really gross person, and the words "Give me a kiss" then on top of that are sort of like I the reader
Okay.
and being invited to kiss the ghoul.
I'm going to share my
cover.
screen so you guys can see what the cover of Gimme a Kiss looks like.
All right.
I'm so excited to look at this. All right, here we go. Oh, well, that's not.
Oh, and a person who's like out at sea in front of a boat.
be.
I
It
should
is
have
a
said.
young woman drowning in the ocean in front of a giant boat.
It looks like it's about to run her down.
Yeah.
Well,
like,
hold
Yeah,
on.
there's no way
feet
she
in front
survives
of
that. Like
this
that is coming
Is
fast,
the
and she's
boat
right
kissing
in
her?
front of it. She is right
Is the
in front
boat
of it.
like, give me a kiss?
Well, no, hold on. It is a young woman who looks like she's standing on a platform in the ocean.
Yeah.
Where she's above the waves.
Leaning to the side.
Yeah.
Everything from like the armpits up looks completely dry.
Yeah, her hair is
Oh,
not
yeah.
wet at all.
in front of clearly a yacht, some sort of sailboat.
Yeah, it's like
that's
a
about
big,
to run her
it's like
over.
a schooner.
Yeah.
Holy
And
shit.
it says, "Give me a kiss. The sweetest words of love are often the deadliest."
Oh my God, I love. God damn it. I
Oh
love-
wait,
Yeah.
hold on.
Yeah,
Look at that other cover. Move your cursor to the left and then down.
this one.
No,
Yeah,
no,
there's
no,
another
no,
kind
no,
of-
no,
this
over
one?
two. No,
To the right.
all the way over to the
Right.
right.
Oh,
That one.
oh. Well,
What's
there's
going on
there's
there?
still water. So there's a water theme,
Her hair's wet at least.
and she's in the
This
She's
one's on
underwater,
Kindle.
but her goggles
That one's
are
on Kindle?
top of her head.
$8.
Nice. Look,
that
and
one
here's
looks like,
another one. This looks like a swashbuckling one.
Yeah, I was about to say that's
That
kind
one
of
looks
like
like a sequel to Jewel of the Nile.
yeah, right. Or like Alan Quartermain or
Oh
something.
man. Now, see, the thing I really love about reading, I'm happy that one's on Kindle, and I hope we can find more on Kindle just so we have like a fallback. But the thing I adore about reading the ones on Open Library is that they are the original
actual
books that have been scanned, and it's not just that you get that feel of like reading an old book and it's all yellow and shit. It's that sometimes they update these books. So like if these books have been out since like the 80s or 90s, they'll reissue them in like the 2000s and they'll change a bunch of shit. Because we found that out with Sweet Valley High. Like they changed a ton of references in Sweet Valley High to make them like current. Like they literally like they would rewrite parts of Sweet Valley High so like whatever they were wearing would make more sense if you were reading it in like 2005 instead of 1983. And they would like change like the names of bands that people talked about so that it wasn't like
That makes sense.
so that you could get like a a young person to read it and not be like, ew, this is something my my grandma read or whatever.
Or even just, I don't know what the hell that means. Therefore, this is completely wasted on me. Yeah.
And Goosebumps, John, you were the one that sent me the article about Goosebumps that apparently they edited those and they took out a bunch of problematic language, which is good. That is good, but we are specifically reading stuff, from that time period. I don't want to read some sanitized bullshit.
I feel like when it's
I think it also could squeeze some of the weirdness out too, right? I mean, like maybe some of this incest stuff, you'd be like, oh, let's clear that up.
I don't know how you'd edit the incest out of this one, though.
No, I'm just saying though. I wonder if it's more than just
that's
like
the thing.
like sensitivity edits. I wonder if they're making edits that just like, well, this is confusing or this is weird. If it would be less enjoyable, therefore, to read the current version.
I feel like when it's like popcorn schlock like this, like it's okay to go back and change and update to tell the same story. But like when it's like real literature, it's just like, no, it should still be a product of its time to learn about that time.
I think that's where I stand on it. I kind of feel like
Like I don't agree with updating Mark.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying.
I don't even necessarily agree with editing anything. I would just say that if you are saying this book is meant to be current, if you're publishing new editions of these books for kids today, like Fear Street or whatever, and then you would be foolish not to make changes to make them more viable for like a modern, you know what I mean? That's like a market choice. It's like if you want your books to be like relevant today and not offensive, then you've got to do this. But the idea that some books cannot be relevant anymore or be offensive, I'm fine with that. I can totally see how, if it's especially directed at kids and they're going to keep reprinting them.
I have no problem with them
it makes
changing
sense.
shit in these books. I'm just saying for literally for our purposes.
No,
for this show.
I agree with you. I think it's more interesting to read the original thing, warts and all.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think it's a funny thing in our culture that right now we're at a moment where there's like people are drawing these lines, and it's like it's not so much about like whether you think things should be updated. It's more about like, what does it mean when a book is going to be kept current? If a book is meant to be valid for today's audiences, then then there's certain books that no teacher's going to touch with a 10-foot pole. You know what I mean? If they're reading them to a class or something like that. So you have to think about it. I totally
agree with like having a disclaimer in the beginning of the book, like, hey, this book was written in this year, and this is how some people thought at that time. Just keep that in mind while you read it.
Yeah, but it's still you're right. But I
agree with that.
But that's for college students. Like I think that when we're talking about stuff that's for kids, it's like
kids' books. Fucking update that shit.
Yeah, right.
Let's
or guess what? Your book goes away.
Yeah. All right. Any last thoughts by anybody before we wrap this up?
I always feel honored when I'm brought in to close out a book. I'll just say that. So thank you very much.
You're a very good closer.
I think it's happened before, and I feel like it's always like you're tired. You're all ready to move on to something else. You're at your wit's end with these crazy books that you choose, and you're
it's
also
always good.
Like it's a good energy to work
fresh air.
This is no offense because it's not like I never want to have John on the show, but like multiple times you've like stepped in when like someone that was going to be our guest like had to pull out at the last second.
Yes,
and I'm just like, John's reliable and amazing, so let's have him on.
Yes. Now, I like to be planned, but I also understand that sometimes I don't get planned because you're waiting for someone to drop out.
But I think feel like we try not.
That's a cool spot too.
It feels more like we try not to have you on because they just always want to have you on.
Yeah.
And John's like, who should we have as a guest? And I'm like, who isn't John?
I feel the same way about all of you.
Who's any other person that isn't John that we could have instead? For once.
I like to have varied guests, and I feel like whenever I would think like, oh, it's time to have John on again, usually you have like swooped in recently to like save an episode. So I'm like, oh, we've just had John on.
Yeah. Well, no, I love it.
Like, it might not be so. Honestly, John, you're a cast member. Like, you're not even a guest.
Unofficial co-host.
I could be like one of those SNL people who pops in for a sketch, but they're not on. They're not the host. Yeah. They're just there.
We talked about this before. You're like the guys who like live down the street from 30 Rock who just like will show up at SNL for no reason.
Right.
You're already on one of the other shows on Cactus Rodeo.
Right. It's very and y'all are all on a show that I just started. So yes. Well, I feel the same way about you guys with anything where it's like I want to have them back on, so I have to have somebody on before I have them back on because so that way it'll seem like they're back and not just like we just have 9 shows that we do together.
Well, that's a good segue into what do you got going on? What do you want people to hear and listen to, John?
My podcast is FYIZ, so just look for that wherever you get your podcasts. My band, mostly me, but also other people, is Sci-Fi, so look for that, SIGHFIGH. Yes, the podcast that I just started, I'm actually very excited about this. I'm hoping to do more, and it was a lot of fun, but it's called The Ookiest Hour, and everybody on this podcast was on that podcast too, and in fun and unusual ways. So yes,
really
that's something that I'm having a lot of fun planning out future ones at the current moment. So
that was fun.
I'm excited.
I listened to it. It was very funny.
I'm glad you liked it.
I
You're a funny part of it.
Listen to it.
It's like our sketches where I instantly forgot everything that we did on it. So when I listened to it, I was like, ooh, this is a treat.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of little bits. I mean, it's an improv comedy thing, but it's like everybody's in character the whole time, and there's just so many little interactions that escalate that I was very pleased with. You all did great. It was a very, very, very fun mix of exactly the sort of flavors I was hoping for. So,
yeah. Chris, what do you want people to know about?
I want people to know about, one, Pop Sucker Theater, our web show.
Yes.
Season 2 coming.
In the future.
It's coming. And
coming along.
it will happen. We're not pulling your chain. It will happen. But, and then the other thing is the Sketchy Show, which is where it's mostly just me, John, and John improvising sketches and losing our damn minds. And then Jonathan edits it into something that kind of makes sense. And it's very funny. So check out the Sketchy Show.
It's very fun and very funny. And go to cactusrodeo.com and read all my little comics. And you can find all of our shit there. It's all linked. Bekah?
Yep, just that stuff.
All that stuff?
Go find that
Go
stuff.
find that stuff. You heard the lady.
She shows up in all that shit.
Yeah.
I'm there somewhere.
She's there. You'll find her.
It's not just in the books that there's incest, is our point. Like, there's between all these podcasts and projects.
Podcast incest all over the place.
Podcastuous.
That is great.
Podcastuous. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for listening. That has been The Eternal Enemy by Christopher Pike. 5 wild episodes. I can't wait to see what we end up reading next time on Below Grade Level. Thank you, and we love you. Bye.
Bye. Now give me a kiss.
Below Grade Level is a Cactus Radio production. You can contact us at podcast@cactusrodeo.com. Subscribe and follow on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify, and follow Cactus Rodeo on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for more entertainment and updates.